Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Awthentik and The Beard, the best television show not on TV. We got a couple of NFC East games to go over today. Those Commanders got their bye real late in the season. I really wish that it was our New York Giants taking another bye because it's been some pathetic football throughout the season so far. But we got the Panthers headed to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. The New Orleans Saints are traveling to MetLife to take on our New York Giants. Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals headed to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys. And tonight, we got a great Thursday night game, y'all. The Green Bay Packers are going to be headed to Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions on Amazon Prime. Make sure to put your TVs on Prime Vision one time. Y'all know what it is, man. Let's get right to it. We got a couple of games to get to here, man. Let's bring in the best co-host in the country. The left side to the strong side duo. My brother from another mother. Shout out to my Dukes one time. The Beard is in the building. What's going on, my G?
I'm flying high, man. Bye-week vibes are high, man.
I like it.
I did some digging into some numbers, man, and it's gonna be a tight race here down the stretch for sure. It's not gonna be.
I've been trying to tell you. You've been like, hey, schedules are easy for this team and that team.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting down the stretch here. I think you spoke a little bit about the Lions and Packers. That division is going to be interesting down the stretch. The West is going to be interesting. I think the Eagles are pretty much a lock for the East, But the wild cards are going to be interesting because that division in the North, the NFC Central, old-fashioned, they're going to probably take a couple there. So it's going to be there's going to be little room for error moving forward. So that's fun. And I am excited that Drew Lock is starting for the New York Giants.
It's not that big of a deal because Tommy DeVito's still hurt. So it's not like hey, we're starting him because we think he's actually the better quarterback. They kind of have no choice in this situation here with Drew Lock. But Commanders sitting in the 7th spot right now in the playoffs. Dallas Cowboys, they only got 5 wins. So I don't think y'all got to worry too much about them until or unless they can win this game on Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We got some really interesting matchups. I brought a few nuggets to the Nugget party. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited to talk about some football with everybody tonight. So let's rock and roll, man.
Yeah, let's get to it, man. Big shout out to the gang. We appreciate all y'all being here on all platforms, as the Beard would say one time. Y'all know what it is, man. Awthentik and the Beard. All right, let's get off into this first matchup here, man. We're going to talk about these Philadelphia Eagles, man. They've been playing some really, really good football as of late. Great winning streak going on. They're going to be welcoming the Carolina Panthers here. I'm pretty sure this is going to be an easy to predict type of game, but you never know. That's why they play the games. Let's get right into it. The Panthers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, Beard, this should be a really interesting game. Philadelphia Eagles sitting atop of the NFC East right now, have probably the easiest matchup of all the teams this week. The Panthers are coming in at 3-8. The Philadelphia Eagles are 10-2 right now. Kickoff is Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what that ticker's saying down there, but I saw the Eagles favored by 12.5, and It looks like it does line up. Over-under is 45.5 in this one. Last week, the Eagles beat the Ravens in impressive fashion, 24-19. The Panthers lost to the Bucs in a game where people are saying if they would have went back and looked at some of the replays here that the Panthers could have won this game in regulation, but they ended up losing in overtime to the Bucs, 26-23. Last meeting, the Eagles beat the Panthers 21-18. That was in 2021 in Carolina. The Panthers have split the last 4 matchups, but they date all the way back to 2015. The Eagles are 10-2 and sitting in second place in the NFC right now. I know they're trying to get that number 1 seed here in this game tonight with the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers will definitely be pivotal in that situation. They've started 9-2 or better in 3 straight seasons now. We gave Nick Sirianni, well, I'll say I gave Nick Sirianni
I was there.
flowers.
I was
You was there. It was like it was like a double date, right? And like I brought, chocolate and flowers for Shorty, and the Beard pulls up. He's at dinner. He didn't really bring much, but he's there. But nonetheless, Bryce Young has been hooping as of late. No interceptions in 3 straight games. He's been protected. He's been sacked just 5 times in the last 4 games. 4 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the last 3, 2 performances over 250 passing yards. He's been playing pretty good football. I mean, at least for his standards, I'll say. He's definitely going to need a little bit of more help from Chuba Hubbard. We talked about Chuba Hubbard after he got his payday, destroyed the New York Giants that week he got paid. He had 28 rushes for 153 yards, 1 touchdown. Last week, not really the same story here. 12 rushes for 43 yards and a costly fumble in that game. Chuba Hubbard does have a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games, though. And, speaking about the running game, the Panthers, come on down. You're next up to try to stop Saquon Barkley. It's going to be an extremely tough, tall task for you guys. Last week, Saquon had 107 yards on 23 carries, 1 touchdown. This guy's got 1,500 yards on the year, 6.1 yards per carry, 5 games with multiple touchdowns. He leads the league in attempts right now. The Panthers have the worst rush defense in the entire NFL. They're allowing, and these numbers are they're staggering numbers. They're allowing 166.8 rushing yards per game. Over the last 3 games, they're allowing almost 190 yards on the ground. The Bucs put up 236 on the ground on Carolina last week.
Bucky Irving, baby.
Yeah, Tampa Baker and the Buccaneers definitely took it to him. But on the road, this was the number that really stood out to me. The Panthers are allowing 192.7 rushing yards per game on the road, and they got to travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. This is going to be a tough matchup. Jalen Hurts has been playing some really solid football as of late. 20 touchdowns since the bye, 10 rushing, 10 passing, just 1 interception during that entire stretch, a passer rating over 90 in all but 1 game. Eagles have not lost since the bye. Some people want to chalk it up to Cooper DeJean. Some people want to chalk it up to A.J. Brown. Some people want to chalk it up to Saquon Barkley. I think this is just a great team effort, and I think Howie Roseman is probably the guy that we should really be pointing the finger at and giving some credit to. But I see the Eagles really dominating this game. Jalen Hurts had some comments said about him from Saquon Barkley this week where he said something that me and you have been saying about Jalen Hurts for 3 years now, that I don't know what it is, but this guy has an it factor, is what Saquon Barkley said. And I do think that is the case. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I mean, listen, we talked a little bit about Drew Lock. When I think about Drew Lock, one of the first things that comes to my mind is Young Jeezy. And
very true.
For those of you that don't know, Young Jeezy, he's a trap rapper. He was one of the first trap rappers out there, in the mainstream sort of. Yeah, he's a big trap guy. So
big shout out to T.I.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gotta show some love to T.I. So just throwing that out there before we talk about this game a little bit, because some may say this is what the folks in the streets like to call a trap game. Okay.
Okay. Carolina Panthers trap game. I like it. I like where we're going with this.
It doesn't get much more trappier than 3-9, my friend. You threw some numbers out there that I have some similar numbers. Like I kind of was digging into Carolina because I feel like Carolina, they've played a lot better, and I think that nobody really likes to see a team just be awful. Right, like nobody wants to see the brown paper bags, and I know the Giants are borderline brown paper bags right now.
Borderline.
Okay, your brown paper bag team, the New York, brown paper
bag for sure.
I kind of feel a certain way for Carolina fans, because I know what it's like to have a god awful owner, and let's face it, the Carolina Panthers have one of the worst owners in all sports.
Are you saying that Giants fans can't sympathize right now?
Listen, you guys have made some questionable decisions. I chalk up the ownership in New York more to age than like just being a douchebag like the Carolina Panthers owner, So it's a little bit of a difference. But yes, I give you I'll throw you a little pity your way. I'll bring the pity to the party when you bring the flowers and the chocolates, okay?
Yeah.
But they're 2-2 in their last 4 games. And those 2 losses in those the last 4 games came by a total of 6 points. And those 2 losses came to the Kansas City Chiefs and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they're playing really good football for the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, there's some glaring holes in this team that you can't overlook and you can't get by. Like you need a little bit of luck. You need a little bit of everything for Carolina.
You need a little bit of luck? Is that what you said? Oh, you said a little bit of luck.
I said a little bit of luck.
Shout out to the sound department. They turned me up. I can hear it now.
I mean, the Saquon Barkley against this team, as far as the run defense goes for Carolina Panthers, it's crazy. So I literally saw this maybe like 10 minutes ago. Okay, Saquon Barkley has the 5th highest rushing prop in DraftKings Sportsbook history this week.
Really?
Yes. Do you want to guess?
Sound like a setup. That sounds like a setup.
Do you want to guess what his over under is for this game in rushing yards?
I'm gonna go 168.
That would be the largest of all time. It's actually only 113.5.
That's not too bad.
So the other ones, just so everybody knows, number 4 was Derrick Henry at 119.5 in October of 21. He finished with 130. Jonathan Taylor was number 3 with 120.5 in 2022 versus Jacksonville. He only finished with 77. Number 2 is Derrick Henry for 126.5 in 2021 versus the Jets. He finished with 157. And the number 1 is Derrick Henry with 129.5, and he finished with 89, and that was in 2021 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. So there obviously books are cooking for Saquon broccoli. I'm so stuck on this Saquon beef and broccoli thing. It's driving me crazy. But yeah, so I mean, you talked about it. The 166.8 is worse in the NFL, obviously. They're also giving up the 6th most yards per attempt at 4.8. And the 3rd most rushing touchdowns at 18. So Carolina across the board is just really bad. They're going to need, you talked about Chuba Hubbard, they're going to need to find a way to get Chuba Hubbard going. And it's, I can't, the Philadelphia Eagles might be the best team in the NFC now. They might have leapfrogged Detroit because this defense is so good. So it's like, yeah, there's a game plan there. The last 4 games, Chuba Hubbard's been averaging 81.5 yards per game. He has 4 touchdowns in those 4 games. So you're going to have to find a way to run the ball, control the clock, right? And in order to control the clock and run the ball, you have to be good on 3rd down. The Carolina Panthers stink. They're 6th worst in the NFL on 3rd down at 34.2%. And so they have to find a nice contrast here of Bryce Young and Chuba Hubbard in order to do everything they can to control the clock. If it was me, I would call a hike at 1 second left on the play clock every play for the entire game. That's just me.
Hurts on the sideline.
That's just me personally. But I mean, it's a tough matchup. I'm glad you mentioned the thing about Saquon and Jalen Hurts, because that's the one thing that you gotta have in order to avoid the cliche trap game. You gotta have a guy like Jalen Hurts. There's got to be guys on your team that just remind everybody else, like, look, it's go time, right? It don't matter if it's the Carolina Panthers, the Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions, the New York Giants. It's go time, right? And guys like Jalen Hurts, like, that's what he does. He got this, everything about Jalen Hurts, from on the field to off the field, the work ethic, the play, just the calmness about him. Like, you never get see him get too high, never see him get too low. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a professional. Yeah. And so, like, you got to have that in this league, especially in games like this. But
I think people don't look at Jalen Hurts as a game manager. And I think that's a little bit doing a disservice to what his game truly is, because he's not one of these guys that's going to go out there and have a dynamic game and be completely elite every week like a Lamar Jackson or somebody like that, a game changer, as Cam Newton would say. But I do think that people need to start looking at him more as a game manager right now, and not in a bad way, in a good way. Like, I do think that this is one of the better quarterbacks when it comes to not turning the ball over, and when getting those opportunities to be able to put a team away. Jalen Hurts and this offense have been able to do that, I would say, for the whole entire season, but at least for the last 8 weeks here.
It's almost like the qualifications for game managers. You just got to win, right? Like under 200 yards passing and 1 touchdown and no interceptions. Like, that seems
definitely
like
not 30 attempts. Staying under the amount of attempts.
But I think the difference is, right, and I think it's fair to call Jalen Hurts a game manager if you wanted to. I wouldn't necessarily be upset with it.
If you don't call him a game manager, what do you call him? Because he's not a game breaker.
Exactly. That's the thing. Is that, like, I wouldn't really like be upset with it. But it's weird because he's like in between, right? Because I believe that at any given time, Jalen Hurts can go out there and throw for like 250 and 3 touchdowns.
I'm not going to agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean,
this
that's
is
how
where
I
I think
feel.
it's very different about game breakers and game managers. When you remove everything from that offense, Jalen Hurts can't drive it. That's as simple as that. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need a thing.
Yeah.
Literally, he's going to go out there and win games for you at all cost,
yeah.
which I do think that Jalen Hurts has a bit of that skill set to just know how to win games. But when you strip everything away from that offense, Jalen Hurts is then an average quarterback. I like Jalen Hurts, and I think he's a really solid quarterback when the pieces around him are right. But I don't look at him as anything more than a game manager right now. And like I said, I don't say it with a negative connotation. I think that, people think that when you say game manager, that's what that means. But
yeah,
I think this is a guy that knows how to stay ahead of the sticks. He understands down and distance. He understands when his team needs a big play. He understands when his back's against the wall and we need to go out there and get this done. And he does it. And I think the best of the best game managers do that. And I just don't see him as a guy that when you take away A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and now with Saquon Barkley, this team wouldn't be nowhere near where they are without those weapons on the field. So if anything, I look at Saquon as the game changer on that offense. I look at Jalen Hurts as the gasoline for the engine. And then I look at A.J. Brown as, he's like the souped up headers. He gives you the more power that you need to be able to take this team to being a Super Bowl contender. But without those weapons, I don't think this team's anywhere in that ballpark.
And I think that a lot of this too, though, is you talked about Sirianni. I think that knowing what you have in Saquon Barkley and using him, like, it's smart football. Like Jalen Hurts doesn't need to go out there and throw for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And
you have
most
Saquon
quarterbacks
Barkley.
are better suited when they're not in the position to have to do that. I mean, look at Joe Burrow. We're going to talk about him in a few, but he's doing all those things that we ask from the quarterback position, and it's still not enough because they don't have the surrounding pieces, especially defensively.
I think in this game here, the last thing I'll say before I give my score is I'm going to be watching this moving forward even more so for the rest of the season is the starts for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
Because eventually they're going to have to find a way to score points early because when you get into the playoffs, that sort of stuff's not going to be able to fly against some of these teams. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to fall behind, 14, 21, nothing, something like that. It kind of messes up with the Saquon equation to a certain extent. Not in my book, but in most, people's books when it comes to being down 14, nothing, 21, nothing. So I just think that that's going to be something to keep my eye on. It'll be interesting to see if Carolina can strike early and can contain Philadelphia in the first quarter and the first couple of drives. I think this game is going to be close. I think Carolina covers. I'm going to go back-to-back weeks picking Carolina to cover the spread. I'm going to go 31-20 Eagles.
31-20. Yeah, I mean, the spread is so large in this one. I like your score. I think the Panthers will score a few less points, though. That Eagles defense has definitely been on fire as of late. And Bryce Young has been a guy that has not been throwing for multiple touchdowns during this streak of good play, we'll call it. I can't call it all victories because it's been 2 out of 4. I'm going to go 31. I think I'm going to go 31-13. I'm going to go 31-13. 2 field goals and a tutty for the Carolina Panthers.
You want to know what's interesting? My original score that I crossed out was 27-14.
20 and seeing that the 31, the Eagles have the potential and the power to do that, but sometimes when they're winning a game in the second half, maybe up by 10, they tend to kind of coast to victory rather than put their foot on an opponent's neck and really get them up out of there. So that score might be a little bit more accurate than what I gave, but we'll see. Hopefully the Eagles are kind of striding here before they get to the playoffs and they can put up a excellent performance against a lackluster ball club. We'll see how that goes. But let's get off into this next game here one time, man. This one I'm, looking forward to talking about. I am a little bit excited here with Drew Lock getting the start again and having the preparation of a week to be able to go out here and, get a little bit of chemistry with these ones. But the Giants are going to be welcoming the New Orleans Saints to MetLife Stadium.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
All right, man. The Saints kind of getting back on track here a little bit. They're sitting at 4-8. The New York Giants are 2-10. Kickoff is Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saints favored by 5 in this one. The over-under is 41. Last week, the Giants lost to the Cowboys 27-20. The Saints lost to the Rams 21-14 in a game where the Saints were really in control in the first half of this one. Last meeting, the Saints beat the New York Giants 24-6 in 2023. That was just last year. Derek Carr was 23 of 28 for 218 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. The Saints have won 2 of the last 3 matchups. The Giants are coming in on a 7-game losing streak. The Saints had their own 7-game losing streak earlier on this season but have won 2 of their past 3 games. The Giants are looking for their first victory at MetLife Stadium all year long. They're sitting at 0-6 right now. And Drew Lock got to start, man. And like we were talking about a little bit earlier, it wasn't necessarily off the impression of his game, but just because Tommy DeVito is still dealing with a forearm injury. Drew Lock was 21 of 32 for 178 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick last week. He did lead the New York Giants with 57 yards rushing, which was a career high for him. He was sacked 6 times, had the pick 6, had the costly fumble. The 2 turnovers, according to the Beard, were definitely the difference makers in this game. This game in particular, I think, is going to be all about how, 1, Drew Lock takes care of the ball or not, and 2, how the New York Giants offense produces in the red zone. Because right now, the New Orleans Saints, their pass defense is not good. They're allowing 249.1 passing yards per game, is 29th in the NFL. They're allowing 7.6 yards per pass, which is 28th in the NFL. But the Saints have only allowed 12 passing touchdowns all year long. It's the 4th fewest passing touchdowns in the NFL right now. You know, I wanted to kind of go out on a limb on social media and call this as a game that the New York Giants could win, because I do feel like there are a lot of avenues for the New York Giants to get the W here. A lot of it is going to be dependent on if Drew Lock can take care of the football. I think if we play a clean game and we can use the run game effectively, we can be in this one. I mean, you can't forget that the Saints lost to the Panthers 23-22. It's not saying that much, because the New York Giants ended up losing to the Panthers in Germany as well, in a game that I felt like we should have won the game. And the injuries for the Saints have piled up in a major way. It was a gruesome injury last week for Taysom Hill. He's now on IR, season-ending IR with the ACL tear. Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, both on IR. And the Saints are just looking for playmakers at any position at this point in time. And Taysom Hill was that guy 2 weeks ago. So for the defense of the New York Giants, I think it's pretty clear. It's a pretty, let me not say an easy task at hand, right? But it's easy to determine what you need to do in this game. It's going to be first starting off by stopping Alvin Kamara in this one. He's closing in on 900 yards on the season. He's got 864. He's got more than 15 attempts in 8 of his 12 starts this season. So they know they have to rely on him over there in New Orleans. He has at least 75 yards rushing in all of those games but one where he gets over 15 attempts. So I think it starts right there. We know the New York Giants have a poor rush defense, bottom 3 in the league right now. And Alvin Kamara has just been really the machine of this offense, if you ask me. He has 7 total touchdowns on the season as well. And in conjunction with that, Derek Carr has been pretty good when Alvin Kamara is playing well. And I think a lot of people forgot that Derek Carr was injured, and they still want to place him in a ballpark of a lot of these lackluster quarterbacks in the NFL, including a guy like Daniel Jones. But on the season, Derek Carr has 14 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. 0 interceptions in 4 straight games. The Saints are over 500 in their last 4 matchups as well. Derek Carr right now has 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in his last 4 games. He's thrown over 230 yards in 3 of the last 4. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling has came alive, as the newly acquired guy over there, and he has a touchdown in each of his last 3 games. I think for the Giants, though, we know, the Saints are dealing with an interim head coach right now. They have their own turmoil going on in their locker room. I think last week the New York Giants showed that there's not really much quit in this team, although you could question effort in weeks previous to that. I think the Giants went out there last week against the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving and showed that, okay, these guys are at least out there trying to put forward their best foot, playing their best ball. For me, you got to get Tyrone Tracy involved in this game. He had just 9 rushes last week, most of those coming in the first half. The Giants had to abandon the run in the second half. I won't even say had to. They just chose to.
Yeah,
Brian Dable has just been wanting to throw the ball a lot more. And with Dexter Lawrence now on IR, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau have to have lights-out games. They have to get after the quarterback. We're talking 9 total pressures last week. We're talking 4 total pressures the week before that. That's just not going to get it done. Them, along with this New York Giants defense, all needs to get back on track. The Saints are only scoring 24 points per game. For me, the magic number, which has been the magic number throughout the year, keep them under 21. The Giants scored 20 points last week. I think if we can hold the Saints to under 21 points, the Giants got a good chance to win this game. What are your thoughts on it?
I think basically everything you said makes sense. It's all there, right? Alvin Kamara leads the Saints. We're there, 12 games in? He leads the Saints in rushing and receiving.
It's crazy.
So it's like, you talked about the injuries. It's pretty devastating. And obviously the Giants are going through some of their own injuries there as well. Yep. And talked about Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's averaging a whopping 29.6 yards per catch. So don't let that guy get behind you. Whatever you do, he's only catching the ball. Like, I think he only has 7 catches since he got there, but 4 touchdowns in 4 games, 29.6 yards per catch. Just don't let that guy get behind you.
How much of that you think is Derek Carr? Because their offense was explosive the first couple of games in the season before Derek Carr got injured, remember? And then Derek Carr goes down, their explosivity kind of, falls short. But now you bring in a new weapon and you're seeing a lot of the same stuff that we saw from Derek Carr to Rashid Shaheed as well.
You have to. I mean, I think that's such an untalked about and unpopular, take, basically, because you talked about how Derek Carr kind of gets some shade thrown his way. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has been bouncing around the league ever since, he left Green Bay. He was in Buffalo. He was in Kansas City, and nothing. Absolutely nothing. He had some case of the yips when it comes to the drops. I think in Kansas City was probably.
Yeah, he did. Made a couple big plays, but definitely had some critical drops with them.
Yeah, so I think you have to give some credit to Carr. It would be like ignoring the facts if you didn't, because it is eerily similar to what they were doing with Rashid Shaheed. I mean, Rashid Shaheed's volume was a little bit more so than what Valdez-Scantling has been doing, but I still think that, you got to place the ball. When you want to hit those home runs, if it's not broken coverage, you got to drop the ball in the basket.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's how you got to, give the opportunity for the touchdown after the catch. And Carr seems to be doing that really well. Carr's not a bad quarterback. It's just been tough. It's been bad situation after bad situation. He's not a great quarterback, but 14-4, the Giants would kill for that right now.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I just, there's going to be some things here that are really, these two teams are actually not far apart in certain things. It's just the big difference is the Giants offense stinks in comparison to the Saints. The Saints are 10th.
Their offense doesn't impress me that much either.
No, it doesn't, but it's not as bad as the Giants. There's some numbers here I'm going to give you that are pretty interesting when you talk about how close these two teams actually
quarterback
are.
play, I'll give them that.
Yeah, quarterback play for sure. Alvin Kamara helps a little bit. So the Saints are 10th in rushing yards per game at 131.8. The Giants got to. You talked about that's number one, right? Because the Giants are giving up 4th most per game at $145.8, right? We talked about Drew Lock. I think this is a big game for Drew Lock. The reason why I said I was excited for Drew Lock is because I think Drew Lock is a talented quarterback. And I feel like we've never been able to see Drew Lock from beginning to end, just it all work. It was just bad in Denver, and then there was injuries, and then the transition over there. And then in Seattle, he was behind Geno Smith. But when he came in, he was kind of electric. You know what I'm saying? It's it kind of reminds you of what he can do. He's kind of like what a Drake May was. That was what Drew Lock was when he was coming out. He was like a Drake May, a Bo Nix sort of a guy. That's how they kind of I looked at Drew Lock when he was coming out.
Two very different quarterbacks, but I can see some similarities. I mean, they are all white.
Shout out to my Caucasian brothers playing quarterback.
Because I think Drew Lock is probably more, as a prospect, probably more of Drake May than he is Bo Nix. Because Bo Nix' whole, the criticism on Bo Nix was the deep ball. He didn't have the deep ball. And we've known ever since Drew Lock came out of Missouri, one of the things that people touted about him was his arm strength. That was one of the biggest things for him.
Yeah, he can definitely throw the rock. So here's some interesting stats where these two teams share, okay? You said 24 points per game. It's a little under, but they're both basically at 23.5 points per game, allowing defensively. Okay?
Oh, allowing. I was about to say, because the Giants ain't scoring no damn 23 points per game right now.
They're definitely not. There's a big difference there, but that's the stinky offense I was speaking about. But yeah, both teams are allowing about 23.5 points per game. Both teams defensively have the 10th best red zone defense in the league at 51.4% in the red zone. Okay. Both teams are 13th best on third down percentage at exactly 36.9%. So they literally have the exact same red zone percentage, 51.4 defensively and 36.9 on third down defensively. Exact same. It's kind of interesting that they're there's basically 3 statistics that these two teams are exactly like on the money on. Okay. Now this is the big difference. Doesn't sound that drastic when you look at the actual points, but where they stand, it's kind of drastic. The New York Giants are the worst scoring offense in the NFL. They're only averaging 15.3 points per game. The New York Saints, on the other hand, are 14.
The New York Saints.
That's because the stats are so much alike, you know.
The New York Saints.
They're 14th, and they're averaging 23 points per game. This is where we get a little interesting here, okay? We're going to talk a little red zone. We're a little red zone. Saints have the 9th best red zone offense in the NFL. Now, a lot of that has to do with Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara, because you have so many like things you could do in the red zone with those two guys, right? So
when Derek Carr is healthy too, I saw a statistic that Derek Carr is top 5 in red zone efficiency from the quarterback position.
See, this is why we're authentic in the beard. You know, gotta have some assists. I need some dimes if I'm gonna be dunking every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? And so the New York Giants, though, on the other hand, are the worst at 42.4%. Worse than the National Football League. And the one thing, though, is, you know, you talked about Tyrone Tracy. Saints aren't too great on the ground defensively against the run. They allow the 7th most rushing yards per game in the NFL at 136 per game. So I think, you know, this game should be close and entertaining if the Giants show up. That's the big question. Like,
we haven't seen the Giants show up in a couple of weeks too, like in a real way. We haven't.
And I think I would hope that, you know, like sometimes when they say like a spark, right? It's so many different periods of a season in which you want to try and supply that spark. Now, obviously, the season is over, right? But Drew Lock strikes me as a guy who just wants to go out there and play ball, wants to have fun, wants to, you know, trap out on the sideline a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
I've been waiting for that guy, though. Where is that guy? The guy I've been seeing get wheeled out there looks like a guy that's a little nervous, a little tight. He's not loose. He's not dancing on the sidelines. He's not showing moxie. He's not showing character. He's not showing his side of, you know, his humor side. None of that. You haven't seen that here in New York. We've seen a guy that sat up there in front of the media and was pretty much like, yeah, I know I should be the starting quarterback, but they're going with Tommy DeVito, and I can't tell you why. That's what we saw, right? Like, so I'm waiting for that guy. And maybe that's a part of the younger Drew Lock. Maybe that's not in the veteran Drew Lock. And I think this game is probably going to be what could tell that. Like, does this guy still have what it takes to be at least one of the viable backups in the league right now? Because so far, his debut as the New York Giants backup quarterback, if I'm another organization, I'm not thinking about signing Drew Lock in the offseason when his contract expires. Not right now.
Yeah, and if he wants to make that next bag, he's going to have to show it these next couple of games that he has the opportunity, and this is the start. So
I think he's a little conscious of that. And I think being, you know, thrusted out there last week on 24 hours notice was not good for him. He even talked about it in the presser that, you know, he went out on the field and took his wristband and was going over the plays hours before the game, before anyone got out on the field. And they asked him, is that a part of your regular routine? And he was like, absolutely not. I'm just not ready. You know, so I'm hoping that this week with the, you know, practicing with the starters and whatnot, and hopefully they ramped up, you know, the temperature of practice and whatnot, and then he could come out here and feel confident in what he can do and his ability on the field.
Yeah, they're going to need him. That's for damn sure. Listen, I want you guys to get Cam Ward really bad here, you know, and I think you can win this game. I really do. But no Dexter Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Defense has been getting worse. And it's not necessarily because they're a bad defense. It's just, you know, things go downhill.
They're a bad defense.
They're a bad defense, okay.
Yeah, they're bad.
I feel like this is so depressing. I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints 27, and I'm going to go New York Giants 17.
All right, 27-17.
27.
Sounds like a lot. I've been looking at the comments from Gregory on all the parlay shows going back a couple of weeks. I think you got me a couple of games right now. I think you're, you know, over the last 5 to 6 week stretch, you built yourself a pretty decent cushion of maybe about a good 3-game lead. And that is not going to affect how I decide this game here and who I pick. Look, man, I just think that the Giants can go out here and win this game. I really do. I mean,
I
and
do
there's not
too.
going to be many games left on the year that I'm going to be able to get to pick my team to win the game. I'm going with the New York Giants in this one, man. I know it's been 2 months since I picked the New York Giants to win a game. It's been 2 months. But I'm going to go with the New York Giants in this one. I think you can't go throughout a whole entire damn season and not win a game at home, for one. I
How
think
many
that
more home
Drew
games do you have left after this?
this one's going to be the 7th home game, so at maximum it'll probably be 2 more home games.
Was the Germany game considered a home game?
I can't remember if the Germany game was a home game for us or for them. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it is considered a home game for somebody. But I know they're 0-6 at home right now, and they got 1 more game, 2 more games at least after this one that we're going to play on Sunday. So I'm going with the New York Giants. I'm going to pick the Giants to win this one. I think it'll be a bit scrappy, a bit ugly. I'm going to go 23-20 in favor of the Giants. I think that we'll know what we have in Drew Lock after this game for sure, for certain. He's going to, get all that time to be able to practice and maybe build the chemistry with guys like Malik Neighbors, guys like Darius Slayton. And I think Brian Dable is out here trying to win games. I know a lot of people have speculated that maybe the Giants are tanking on purpose, but I don't think that's something that we would see from a perspective of a head coach. I think that's something you see from the perspective of a general manager, and I won't write that off from Joe Shane and from John Mara, maybe thinking like, yeah, let's get the best draft pick. But I'm picking the Giants. Yeah, I think the Giants will win this one. I think it's going to be super close. Ugly game, sloppy in the beginning, and a couple of touchdowns in the second half. Give me the Giants 23-20.
So you have 2 more home games after this.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, 2
Yeah.
exactly. It's not looking
Because you
good.
normally get nine home games, 8 away.
Ravens and Colts.
Yeah. So just looking at the Colts at this point.
Big shout out to Door Gunner for the $5 super chat. I want so badly for us to be the ones, as the Commanders, to knock them bum-ass Eagles out of the playoffs. Commanders needed this bye week 3 years straight. Week 14 bye week.
Damn. So you should be used to this, man. I thought this was the first time in a while. Week 14 bye week, sir. That's super late.
Yeah, it's time that the NFL, stops giving us the Dan Snyder treatment.
But the late bye is good for a team when you've handled business in front of you. Like to get a rest this late in the season, getting ready to go into the playoffs, you could argue it couldn't have come at a better time, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's some teams who have the sweet spot is the 10 to 12. Week 10 to 12 are the sweet spots.
Why you like that as the sweet spot?
Because I feel like you've gotten a good portion of your season done, and then the back end coming. It's just kind of like that good midpoint for me. It's not too early because some teams get those bye weeks and it's like week 8, week 7, week 6. It feels like, and it's
Eagles
like,
had their bye week 4.
You got to wait. That's it. And especially in a 17-game season, like 18 weeks. So it's just like, that's a long time. But it's every team's different, I mean,
that's why I like the bye later, because the season is so long now, teams getting ready for the playoffs. There's a different mindset that needs to settle in for teams that are going to the playoffs. And then at this point, like I said, if you handle your business early, that bye week is like, man, you've already the Washington Commanders right now are 3 games up on the Dallas Cowboys, and they're on a bye week. So they just get to sit back, watch football, and hope that the teams across the division lose games, rather than if you're like a team that gets to bye early on, and let's say like the Philadelphia Eagles, you can't bounce back from it. Imagine if the Eagles didn't win 8 straight and they split this 500 over these last 8 games. Now you're looking at, man, hey, we got to turn it up. Not only we got to turn it up, we're banged up. We're not healthy. We've been playing the season for so long. So I kind of like this for y'all right now because y'all were the front runner of the NFC East throughout the majority of the first 3 quarters of the season. Now you win a game, you go into the bye, no messy vibes, nothing like that, no losses. You got the W that you needed, and you get to just chill and rest and get healthy. And not that you guys necessarily need to get healthy, but guys like Brian Robinson, I'm sure, are going to benefit from having another week off.
Lattimore hopefully coming right back
Lattimore
after
too.
that too. So, it has its pros and its cons, and a lot of it's hindsight too. It's like, it would have been really great if we had the bye week after the Hail Mary and Jaden's ribs could have healed and blah, 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 blah. Like those sort of things, hindsight. It's a very different view at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Big shout out to our guy, your guy, everybody's guy. It is Tuto with a $4.99 super chat. Says love and respects to Awthentik in the Beard, Gold Nuggets, Jewel Master, and World Roadmaps Prime Minister. God, I love that. Love it. Die-hard Giants fans across the pond, and please slap all stinky boys losers.
Losers. I like how
Fist
you
pump
spell it.
Italy.
Big shout out Tudo, man. That's my dog right there one time. You already know Tudo. And we got one more from Door Gunner one time.
Big shout out Door Gunner with a $2 super chat. Says NFL should look at 2 bye weeks with 17 games.
I wouldn't be mad at it.
I wouldn't be mad at it either. But you know what they're going to do? They'd be like, yeah, we'll give you 2 bye weeks. Give us 1 more regular season game. That's what
I wouldn't be mad at that
would
either.
say. I wouldn't, but
either.
I'm sure some players would not be happy about it.
Let's see. So either 16 games or now 17, but 16 games and a bye, or go 18 games and 2 byes. Which one would you take?
As a player?
As a player.
I mean, I would have to make sure that the CBA incorporates that in our contracts, values of our contract.
Oh, adding another game check?
They should need getting paid more money if I'm going to be putting my life on the line for another game.
So which one you like better?
I mean, as a guy who loves football and who wants to watch football all year long,
As the player.
As the player?
As the player, yeah.
Nah, I'm good. I'll stick with 17 games.
Give me the 2 bye weeks and the 18 games. Easy. You
got to eliminate preseason games, though?
Add the preseason. I don't like what they're doing with the preseason now, man. Trying to make the preseason like, scrimmages and whatnot. These guys aren't even playing in those games. And then you come week 1, you wonder why Daniel Jones is out here throwing 2 interceptions. He hasn't thrown the ball to his offense the whole goddamn summer. So I want to see real preseason back, bro. Like, I want to see preseason where they play 3 games, man. Do this like we did back in the day. I understand like you got the premier players, right? Like, all right, back in the day, Emmitt Smith, you're not playing no preseason. We know what you got to do.
Patrick Mahomes isn't going to play a preseason game.
Yeah. Like, quarterbacks, though, man, they need it. I think they need it. It's the wide receivers, maybe, the special players like the running backs. I'd have them on the sideline. But you got to be one of them ones. You can't just be a regular wide receiver one.
Yeah,
you got to be one of them
You got to be tier 1.
CeeDee Lamb, you're playing. I'm sorry.
CeeDee Lamb's playing.
You're playing. Jamar Chase, you could maybe sit out a couple games. Justin Jefferson, you could sit out. You've earned that luxury.
Where are we putting CeeDee Lamb in our top 10 wide receivers?
Top 10. Put him in that top 5. I don't need top 10 to put CeeDee Lamb in it. I got him in top 5.
Okay. Just want to
Jamar
make sure
Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb. Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown.
You think the NFC East has the best wide receiver ones in the NFL?
It's a good question.
Marinate on that one.
Nah, I would go NFC North over us.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And then who is Chicago?
Chicago's DJ Moore. There's another team in that division.
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. So I just think total, they're probably better than what we got going on.
So.
I know where you see Terry McLaurin.
I know,
right?
but I came down to earth on Terry a little bit, but he's
Terry's a baller.
Yeah, he's a baller. I think he's better than DJ Moore.
And that's just winging it, going NFC North off the top.
I know.
I'm sure we could even. I mean, we could go through other divisions. There's going to be better wide receivers.
It's a good little one.
Because Malik Neighbors, I like Malik, and I think he's good, but like.
Yeah.
He hasn't came into this league and shown like Jamar Chase type numbers.
See, Malik Neighbors kind of messes it up for everybody else in the NFC East. Thanks.
Terry McLaurin, really? I mean, these guys are good. They're good. Don't get me wrong. What about AFC North? George Pickens, Zay Flowers, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and then Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little dicey.
Yeah,
like the big 3 are better, but yeah, not the Jerry Jeudy. I mean, hey, if we're going off last week, what have you done for me lately? Jerry Judy's looking like a wide receiver 1A right now.
Hey, what did he put up, like 260 or something like that?
Went crazy.
Hey, Terry McLaurin might make second team All Pro though. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I'm rooting for him, bro. I'm rooting for him. I like him. He's one of the better wide receivers, top half of the league for sure. But let's get off into this next one, man. Monday night matchup, Cincinnati Bengals. This is gonna be a good one. Traveling to Jerry World to take on them Dallas Cowboys. All right, I had the majority, like the chunky part of my notes came for this game. I don't know why, but the Bengals are coming in at 4-8. Cowboys are 5-7 after their victory last week against the New York Giants. Kickoff is Monday night, late night vibes. The Bengals are favored by 5.5 in this one. The over/under is 49.5. Cowboys beat the Giants 27-20 last week. The Bengals lost to the Steelers 44-38. Last meeting, the Cowboys beat the Bengals 20-17 in 2022, and guess who was the starting quarterback in that game? It was Cooper Rush. Yep, so he's already proven he can beat the Cincinnati Bengals before. The Cowboys have won the past 5 matchups against the Cincinnati Bengals as well, and the Bengals have only won 4 of the 14 matchups all time. Bengals coming in on a 3-game losing streak, their second 3-game losing streak of the season, and the Bengals have lost 4 of their last 5 games. 7 of the Bengals' losses have been by just 1 score. 3 games in a row where they have lost by 1 score. After a 5-game losing streak, the Cowboys have won 2 in a row now, both games versus the NFC East. And if it truly mattered in, contending for the division right now, that would mean a lot. But the Dallas Cowboys are hanging on by a thread right now to their playoff hopes. And all of that rests upon the shoulders of Cooper Rush. He's playing some pretty decent football over the last 2 games. He's 2-0 over those last 2, has just 1 turnover-worthy throw in the last 2 games, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions in that span, no turnovers, 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the year. Completion percentage was pretty good in those other games, but last week against the New York Giants, 58.3 completion percentage. But he's taking care of the ball, and I think that's what gives the Dallas Cowboys a shot at winning some of these games. He's going to have to do it without right guard Zach Martin, who is out for the rest of the year. He had season-ending ankle surgery. He did miss the last 2 games, and Cooper Rush is 2-0 in those games, so we don't really need him, right? I'm kind of just kidding. But RTDB, man, Cowboys have got to run the ball to help out another very lower on the totem pole game manager within the division. And the Bengals are going to be without linebacker Logan Wilson. He had surgery to get his knee cleaned up. He's going to be out for the season as well. But Rico Dowdle is going to have to absolutely help out Cooper Rush. He had his first rushing touchdown last week in his first 100-yard game. 22 carries for 112 versus New York. He's averaging. These numbers are kind of like puzzling to me, and this is where I'm starting to point the finger at Mike McCarthy a little bit here, because the Dallas Cowboys have not been blown out in a lot of games. There's been a few games, obviously, throughout the year where they have been, but Rico Dowdle, okay, over the last 2 games, he's averaging 4.8 yards per carry, but he's averaging 4.5 on the season. He has had over 4 yards per carry in every game but 2. So why is the running game not working for the Dallas Cowboys? A lot of it has to do with the attempts and the commitment to running the ball, which Mike McCarthy has just pretty much abandoned this season. The Cowboys have the second fewest rushing yards in the NFL right now with just over 1,000 and the fewest rushing touchdowns, but Dowdle is top 20 in yards per carry. So tells me 2 things. They need to get another running back over there who can help out the situation outside of Zeke Elliott, who does have 2 rushing touchdowns on the year, but has been a bit of a shell of himself as of late. And it just seems like Mike McCarthy is just a little bit happy to pass the ball to guys like CeeDee Lamb. Quarterback goes down. CeeDee Lamb still leads the league in targets right now with 118. Lamb needs 120 yards receiving to become the first Dallas Cowboys wide receiver to reach 1,000 yards in 4 of his first 5 seasons. Lamb has 40 targets in the last 4 games with Cooper Rush. That's 10 per game. With Dak Prescott at quarterback, he had 84 targets in 8 games. You don't got to be a mathematician to figure out that that's not many more attempts with Dak Prescott than it is with Cooper Rush. It's 10.5 to 10. CeeDee Lamb, the targets in the last 3 games with Dak Prescott were absolutely ridiculous. They really had no other option but to throw this guy the ball and at times hand him the ball off as well. Yeah. He had 12 targets versus Atlanta, 17 targets versus the 49ers, and 14 targets versus the Detroit Lions. So he's not quite getting that type of volume, but he is getting 10 a game from Cooper Rush, which should be sufficient if they can get the running game clicking. But the Cowboys got to score some points in this game. You can't get down there to the red zone, get down there to the green zone, and settle for 3 against this Cincinnati Bengals team. The Bengals, they're averaging 27.9 points per game. That's 5th in the NFL. 26.3 points per game on the road. 33 points per game over the last 3 games. The Cowboys are only averaging 20.7 points per game. That's 21st in the NFL. But over the last 3 games with Cooper Rush at quarterback, they're averaging 23.7. At home, they just got their first home win last week against the New York Giants. They're only averaging 16 points per game at home this year, and that's not going to get it done. But whatever goes down in this game, I know one thing. Joe Burrow is not at fault. Joe Burrow has been playing some of the best football from the quarterback position that I want to say we've seen over the past 5 to 6 years. I mean, this is elite level type of stuff, and I've kind of phased Joe Burrow out of my big three a little bit, but like he's slowly but surely making his way back up into my top three. And I think I got to have him and Josh Allen as 3A, 3B at this point. Last week, he was 28 of 38 for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns versus the Steelers. His offense put up over 30 points. They still lost the game. Burrow has 3 straight games over 300 passing yards, has at least 3 touchdown passes in 4 straight games. 15 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in his last 5 starts, 30 touchdowns on the year, just 5 interceptions, 67.7% completion percentage on the year, a quarterback rating of over 108 of his 12 games. Joe Burrow is one of 5 quarterbacks in NFL history with at least 30 touchdown passes and no more than 5 interceptions through 12 games. Aaron Rodgers did it 3 times. Patrick Mahomes has done it. Tom Brady has done it. Drew Brees has done it. Those are like the GOATs of the quarterback position, period. The worst record from any of those quarterbacks who have done that have had 30 touchdown passes with 5 or few interceptions through 12 games. The worst record was 9-3. The Bengals are sitting at 4-8 right now.
8. Oh.
It doesn't make no. 2 of those teams were 12-0. So the fact that their offense is doing what they are doing with Burrow leading the league right now in passing yards, leading the league in completions, leading the league in passing touchdowns, the fact that they only have 4 wins is absolutely ridiculous. One of our homies, I believe he's in the chat right now, Platino Power 2 times, he hit me up on Twitter and he was asking us about like what are the biggest determining factors of like what will hold a team back from having a good year. And I told him quarterback play and a bad defense that can't stop teams from scoring points. They obviously got the quarterback play part completely pat down. Their defense has just been completely pathetic. Burrow is also one of 6 quarterbacks with at least 3 consecutive games with 300 passing yards and at least 3 touchdowns. It's only been done by 6 other quarterbacks. And Joe Burrow's just been lighting up the box score the whole entire year, but somehow, some way, the Bengals just cannot win games. Now, I do think that this game looks like one of those type of games where the Bengals should win it. The Cowboys have been playing some pretty good football the last couple of weeks, but I think that the Bengals are going to be the type of offense that's just, they're going to test this Dallas Cowboys offense by the amount of points that the Bengals are going to put up on the board. Or the Dallas Cowboys defense got to come out here and not necessarily pitch a shutout, but they're going to have to pitch something pretty close to that. The Cowboys right now, getting Micah Parsons back in the lineup, getting DeMarvion Overshown, who was the player of the defense last week against the New York Giants with that pick 6 return to the crib, and the 6 tackles that he had in that game. Those 2 guys, we were talking about the future of the Dallas Cowboys a couple of weeks back, and if they should maybe forego signing a guy like Micah Parsons and try to trade him or something like that. And more that I get to see DeMarvion Overshown play, I think that situation makes no sense. Like Micah Parsons and DeMarvion Overshown together as a tandem, and I might be jumping the gun here a little bit. DeMarvion has only played just 1 season after the ACL tear. But this duo, you got to keep this duo together. They have 16 sacks, not them 2, but the Dallas Cowboys have 16 sacks since Micah Parsons came back playing ball with DeMarvion Overshown. The most sacks by any team over the last 4 weeks. Overshown had that pick 6. Micah Parsons getting after the quarterback last week with Drew Lock. Ferocious, the word we love to use when we used to talk about who was my dog that was playing with the Dallas Cowboys? Randy Gregory. Tenacity, bro. These guys know how to make a quarterback feel uncomfortable. And I think they're going to have to do that with Joe Burrow if they're going to want to have to get close to pitching that quote-unquote shutout. Hopefully they can get Trayvon Diggs back in the lineup. He's missed 2 games, but they're going to need him going up against Jamar Chase. I think that'll make the matchup with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins going up against the Dallas Cowboys secondary a little bit more worthy with Deron Bland and with Trayvon Diggs there. But also red zone. The Bengals have the second best touchdown rate inside the 20-yard line in the entire NFL, 71.1%. The Cowboys have the second worst. So that's absolutely going to mean a lot in this game. This is probably the tougher matchup for me to pick of all the matchups on the slate today. I'm gonna see if you can lean me one way because I know what team you a fan of. So I want to see if you can lean me maybe into that direction or possibly get me off of my Cowboys throne, my Cowboys pedestal here. We'll see, but I'm leaning a little bit towards the Dallas Cowboys the way that they've been playing. But the Bengals offense has been very high power as of late.
I think it's like 4 or 5 games the Bengals have lost and scored 30 points or more. That's crazy. And you talk about Joe Burrow. Obviously, you can't talk about Joe Burrow without talking about Jamar Chase. Imagine it if I told you in the year 2025 in a pass happy league and all of this, right? That the team was the leading quarterback and the leading wide receiver of the NFL, had 4 wins through week 12.
Yeah, it's 2024, not 2025, but I'm with you. I'm with you. You know you're going to have to remember this year. You're about to have a baby here. It was technically going to happen in 2025, though.
You get the point. Okay?
Yeah, I do.
Listen, it's going to be an interesting matchup, though, I think. I think it'll be a fun game. I saw Monique talking about that in the chat. I think it'll be a fun game. Listen, Dallas is going to have to find a way to defend a pass, okay? They're 13th best in yards allowed per game, which is kind of interesting, 212.1. They have allowed the 15th most touchdowns passing in the NFL at 17. They allow the 3rd most yards per attempt at 7.9 and the 4th most yards per completion at 11.9. So you can't let Jamar Chase get ahead and get behind, because that could get out of hand quick. Now, we're going to talk about the running backs in this game, because neither one of these teams can run the ball for shit, right? But I think that they can, if things work out a certain way, all right? Now, Nick Martin's done for the year. Notre Dame alum, got surgery.
Or Zach Martin.
Zach Martin. I said Nick Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's done for the year now. That's going to be interesting to see how they manage that situation. Now, Dallas, we're talking about the rushing defense here. 2nd worst in the league, giving up 147.6. Cincinnati, 11th worst in the league, giving up 128.2. Now, these are 2 of the worst rushing offenses in the league, too. So you got 2 really bad rush defenses, 2 really bad rush offenses. Who's going to win that battle?
Yeah.
Dallas, 2nd worst rush offense, 85.8. Cincinnati, 6th worst rushing offense at 91.7 yards per game. The last 4 games, Chase Brown is averaging 79.5 yards per game with 2 touchdowns. Rico Dotto is averaging 69.8 yards per game with 1 touchdown. Both of these defenses allow the same amount of points, 28.3 points per game, which is tied for 2nd most points allowed. Okay.
You know what's wild is that the narrative, and I won't even say the narrative, the facts surrounding the Cincinnati Bengals, right? That their offense is that good and their defense is the liability. That same narrative is not being given to the Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys, yeah. It's everything's a little bit different for the Dallas Cowboys. It's always going to be like
that's
that,
impressive,
right?
that they not only have a better record than the Bengals, but it just seems they're not scoring. I mean, it not even seems, they're not. They're not scoring as many points as the Bengals.
The difference between the 2 of them is 15 rank spots and 7.2 points per game on offense.
That's interesting. That means that the Bengals have played. And let me think back. The Bengals, I'm trying to think what place schedule the Bengals are playing this year. Did they make the playoffs last year? They didn't, right?
No, they didn't. Remember, Joe
So
Burrow
they're probably
got
playing
hurt.
like a third place.
Fourth for 3rd place schedule.
It's interesting because every time I looked at their games, I felt like they were playing some difficult teams. Dallas is playing a 1st place schedule.
Yeah, and it's that division too for the Bengals has been that AFC North has been tough this year too.
Tough,
Ravens, Steelers, and then you mix in some sprinkle with some post Watson Browns. It's a whole different ball games, and I think it's the rush defense for Cincinnati. It's the pass defense too. So they're gonna have to find a way if the Cowboys want to win this game to throw the ball. The passing defense for Cincinnati, yards per game, 6th most per game at 241. They allow the 11th most yards per attempt at 7.4, 10th most yards per completion at 11.3, and they've allowed the 4th most passing touchdowns in the NFL at 22. So I think one of these teams is going to have to figure out how to run the ball, and outside of that, it's going to be wild. 4th, 9-8.
Yeah, and you know what's wild about these teams is that I don't think it's necessarily personnel why they can't run the ball. Like I talked about with Mike McCarthy, it's that lack of commitment to it. Like,
yeah,
the Bengals have 2 capable running backs in Moss and Chase Brown. Chase Brown, I think, let me make sure I got this number correct, at least 90 scrimmage yards in the past 4 games.
Dog.
And Rico Dowdle is coming alive here in the last 2 games
better.
too. So to me, it's not that these teams are incapable of running the ball. It's just that they don't like to run the ball. And I get it with the Bengals. I mean, they have the weapons on the outside, but I think it is more important for the Dallas Cowboys to be able to establish that run. And I think you'll see them come out with a more concerted effort to run the ball than the Bengals will. I think the Bengals are going to try to get up on the scoreboard early with the pass attack.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think it's not even just the commitment. It's the lack of I guess it is technically commitment too, but just the lack of sticking to it. It's like, 10 points we're down. Can't run the ball again for another 35 minutes.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just, I don't think that teams realize that it's like you can fall further behind by trying to pass the ball to come back to win than you will trying to run the ball to come back and win.
I gotta find some data on that because I think it'll go both ways.
I mean, it could if you have like
here's the
Joe
two
Burrow
scenarios.
and Jamar Chase.
If you're passing the ball from behind and you're not sustaining drives, the
Yes.
clock is being shortened, which
Yeah.
in return gives you more time as the losing team. If you're running the ball and not sustaining drives, not only are you not sustaining drives, you're literally killing the clock as you're doing it.
But you also, if you're throwing the ball and you're giving the ball back to the team that you're already trailing from, it's more than likely that they're going to keep scoring points. And
I mean that's in both scenarios of not sustaining drives. If you're giving the ball back to the team,
so you
you're
think it's
more
more
likely
than
to allow that team to score points. Yeah,
I'm not mad at that.
when you get down by 20 or let's say you're down 17 or you're down 20, the whole thing here is that you need to preserve the clock. You're not only playing against the team that you're losing against, you're playing against the clock too, because ultimately you're going to run out of time to come back.
So you want to know what I would compare it to? Running the ball to come back as opposed to passing the ball to come back? I would compare it to calling a timeout in basketball when you just got mollywopped on a 13-0 run.
Yeah.
Kind of just
Cut a Bang brings up a good point here too, where he says if you're not sustaining drives and you're passing the ball, right, then you're also shortening the clock for when your defense has to get back on the field. So that leverage supports the running the ball when you're down late, you know. But that's why I say I got to look at some data on it because to me,
it's an interesting thing to look at. Yeah,
both sides of the coin present pros and cons. To be honest, but at the end of the day, I think it's this: the quickest way to score touchdowns in the NFL is by passing the ball.
Yeah, I think
y'all, my cats are like, you know, when they just like face off, like they just like, I'm about to slap the shit out of you right now. Y'all need to chill, man. They good.
Speaking of cats, I'm gonna go Cincinnati Bengals 30.
You picking the cats?
No, Cincinnati 30, Dallas 22.
Damn, I don't want to pick another game against you right now. Is that Cowboys at home got their first home win? They're only averaging 16 points. Go with it. The data is there. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this game. Give me the Bengals 27-19.
Good score.
Yeah. 20. What did I say? 27-19. You said
27-19. I said 30-22.
30-22. Okay, a little high scoring. Rozelle says 37-17 in favor of the Cincinnati Bengals. Kai said the Cowboys own the Bengals. Okay. I want to pick the Dallas Cowboys. I ain't gonna lie, but like, here's the thing. All right. The Dallas Cowboys have won every game against every team that they should have beat, except the Saints. Maybe the Falcons. Maybe. But every other one of those games were games that the Dallas Cowboys, you'd probably pick against them. Cincinnati Bengals got 4 wins. They scored over 30 and lost last week. We're going to keep it. Bengals. Yeah, we're keeping it. I like the Bengals. All right, let's get off into this last matchup, man. The Packers taking on the Detroit Lions. All right, so I got about a good 10 minutes before kickoff, so I'll break this down for you guys and then, throw on my Packers uniform and get out there and go and try to handle some business.
I saw standing here earlier. He's like, speaking of commitment, the commitment from Awk to give us a preview for the garbage bag Giants before going and taking the field against the number 1 team in NFC. It doesn't get more committed than that.
Absolutely, man. My Packers sitting at 9-3 right now. We got to take on the division-leading Detroit Lions at 11-1. Kickoff is tonight, 8:15 in about 10 minutes on Amazon Prime. Lions are favored by 3.5. The over-under is 51.5. Last week, my Packers beat the Miami Dolphins 30-17. The Detroit Lions beat the Bears 23-20. Keep that score in mind. That's suspect right there. Last meeting, the Lions beat the Packers 24-14 in Green Bay. That was just a little bit over a month ago, November 3rd here. Number 3 offense in Green Bay going up against the number 2 offense in Detroit. The Lions are the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Detroit has won 5 of the past 6 matchups against the Packers. The Packers have won their past 5 division road games. That is impressive right there. Both teams are playing their 3rd game in 12 days, so not a lot of rest coming into this one. The Lions are 8-2 in primetime games with Dan Campbell as the head coach, so that's definitely leaning towards their favor here. 3 playoff teams likely from the NFC North is what it's kind of looking like. Detroit, Green Bay, and Minnesota are the first 3 teams in the division to enter Week 14 with at least 9 wins since 1985. That division was the AFC East. Jared Goff has been playing some really good football as of late. I think it's important for him to take care of the football. And for as high potent and as high power as that offense is, Jared Goff's numbers are a little bit Derek Carr-like. Just a little bit. 22 touchdowns on the year, 9 interceptions. The Packers have scored 90 points off turnovers this season. It's the 2nd most in the NFL. Goff has got to take care of that ball, and obviously Xavier McKinney has been a guy for sure. Goff has not thrown an interception in 8 of his last 9 games.
He throws one tonight.
He might. But 8 of his last 9 games, he has not had an interception. The one game that he had an interception in of those 9 games, he threw 5 interceptions.
Oh, that was a
so these numbers are, and they won. These numbers are very skewed when you look at them, because it's not typical that a quarterback throws 5 interceptions in one game. And I don't like to do this, but you remove the 5. We're talking a guy with 22 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Give him 1 from that game, maybe 5 interceptions. And that was against the Houston Texans. They definitely do have a very top-notch secondary. I love their 2 cornerbacks over there. Goff has multiple touchdown passes in 8 of his 12 starts this year. This is another good fact about Jared Goff. Jared Goff, he's one of 6 NFL players with at least 100 touchdown passes with 2 different teams, joining Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Carson Palmer, Kurt Warner, and Fran Tarkenton. You talked about Xavier McKinney. You got to keep your eyes on him throughout this game. Has 7 interceptions on the season. That's tied for first. Watch out. But Kirby Joseph is the one who's tied with him in interceptions in the league right now. He also has 7, and he plays for the Detroit Lions. So that's a good matchup right there. Goff only passed for 145 yards in the first matchup. Was not his season low. I was extremely surprised to find that out when they played Green Bay the first time. He passed for 85 yards versus Tennessee. He had 3 touchdowns. Could you imagine going out there at the quarterback position, throwing for 85 yards and having 3 passing touchdowns? Doesn't make any sense. For the Green Bay Packers, it's important. Stop the run. We know how Detroit handles business. We know how they make their money. It's definitely with that rushing attack with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So you definitely got to stop the run. Then you're going to have to stop Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jahmyr Gibbs has 973 yards rushing. David Montgomery has 720 yards rushing. They have 11 total touchdowns combined right now. Good luck trying to stop this rushing attack. Amon-Ra St. Brown, quietly, 820 yards on the year, 76 receptions. He has just 2 games under 5 receptions all year. Hasn't scored a touchdown in back-to-back games for the first time since week 1. He still has 9 touchdowns on the season. Now, with 9 receptions tonight, Amon-Ra St. Brown will become the 3rd player in league history to have 400 receptions in his first 4 seasons of his career. You want to take a guess at who the other 2 wide receivers are real quick? And I'll tell you this, they're not top-notch type of guys that you would think would be on this list, like the Randy Mosses and those guys.
That's where I was
2 other guys on this list who got to 400 receptions in their first 4 seasons of their career. So think about volume from a reception standpoint. Who do you think the 2 other guys are?
Anquan Bolden. I thought I was going to sneak in with that one.
Think high receptions early on in your career. You're going to get one of these, I think.
Cooper Kupp?
That's a good guess, too, but...
Damn, who is it?
It's Michael Thomas.
Oh, Marquise Colston?
Colston? Nah. It's Michael Thomas, 470. Jarvis Landry had exactly 400.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was not going to get that. Michael Thomas, I probably should have.
I thought that was the one that you would get because he was lighting up the reception, category for a long time there. But there are some key injuries coming into this game as well, too. Jair Alexander, linebacker Edgerrin Cooper dealing with a hamstring. They're both going to be out for their 3rd straight game. No Romeo Doubs dealing with the concussion. He'll be out for his 2nd straight game. And the Detroit Lions are going to be without their left tackle, veteran left tackle in Taylor Decker. So going to be a tough matchup here. Injuries might play their role here in this one. But I'm leaning towards the Detroit Lions, but the Packers are a team that is equipped to beat them for sure.
Yeah, I think the Lions have like 17 players on defense on IR this year. It's ridiculously crazy. I don't know, man. This game is this is tough. I think both these teams have the Lions defense is better than I think people give them credit for. Now they are banged up beyond banged up can get banged up, right? I mean that's just a fact. I love the fact that both these teams have really good run games. Detroit's good against the run. I think Josh Jacobs deserves more credit from the community of footballers than he gets right now.
Yeah.
He's having a fantastic year. He's doing it both receiving and running, too. So he's kind of like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery together. Jahmyr Gibbs, though, I mean, I know he's a little banged up, but damn, that's just so good. They could just throw either one of those guys out there, and they both can catch. They both can run.
Yeah,
I love Amon St. Brown. I think you got two good tight ends in this game. Sam Laporta had a good game last week. He only had 3 catches, but 2 touchdowns. Tucker Kraft has been playing out of his mind at the tight end position for the Green Bay Packers this year. I mean, Christian Watson has been getting open on some of these deep passes. That's something to keep your eye out with Dobbs
Top
out.
of the league in yards per reception, Christian Watson.
There's a lot of interesting concepts here. I don't know what to expect from this game. I want to just pick the Lions, right? And I'll take the Lions to win. Like if this was the parlay, I would take the Lions to win. I'd take Green Bay to cover, and I'd take the over 51.5. I have the weirdest feeling that this game ends in a tie.
Really? This will be crazy if this game
throw
ends in a tie.
wrench into everything.
Yeah.
And ends in a tie. Like 37-37 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to throw that out there for clip purposes.
Hey, just in case, right?
Just in case, okay? But I'm going to stick to my guns here. I'm going to go parlay into answering this question because I think Green Bay can win this game. I really do. I really, really do. I think Jordan Love is playing really good football. I think the Lions have just been pummeling everybody. But there's been a couple of games where they've kind of just their defense has. And this is why I talked about earlier with the run and the pass thing, right? The Lions' defense hasn't really faced much because their offense has been outscoring teams like by 2,000 points in the first half. So the game script is already kind of like in the favor of the defense. It's easier for them to play the defense that they want because they know what's coming because they're leading by 40 plus points every damn game. I think the Green Bay Packers can win this game. I am going to take the Lions, though, to win. I think Green Bay covers at 3.5, so there's a possibility that they win. But I think if they lose, it'll be by 3 points or less. And I think we do get the over 51.5. Although I will tell you, I bet this game Green Bay plus 6.5 over under 44.5 points. So I took a little bit less on the points, and I gave Green Bay a little bit more room on the spread. But that's what I bet personally already today.
Yeah, I do think that this is going to be a high-scoring game. I see Bergs is in the chat. He said 34-30. I really like that score in favor of the Lions, and I'm going to play this one a bit safe like you are as well. I think that the Green Bay Packers have an ability here to be able to possibly turn the ball over, make more mistakes than the Detroit Lions, and still be able to stay in this game and compete. It's not going to surprise me if the Packers win this one. But I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to win this one. I like that 34-30 score, too, so I think they cover the 3.5 as well. I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions on this one. That game against the Chicago Bears last week, 23-20, is not enough for me against a team, with, 4 wins on the season in the Chicago Bears. I don't like that. That doesn't sit well with me. And I'm remembering the primetime game with the Detroit Lions versus the Seattle Seahawks where I felt that, it was high scoring. There wasn't a lot of defense in that game. Geno was sticking around and playing it close with Jared Goff. The Lions ultimately end up winning that game. I think the Packers are going to play a very similar game, still come up a little bit short, but it'll be a better performance than what we saw from the Seattle Seahawks earlier in the year. So give me the Detroit Lions to win this one 34-30.
Should be a fun game.
Love it. Definitely love it. All right, man, we're going to get y'all up out of here. Kickoff is about to start like right now. Big shout out to all of y'all for pulling up, rocking out with us today, man. It was definitely a vibe over here on Awthentik and the Beard. Appreciate y'all pulling up. Beard, any last words before we get them up out of here real quick?
Nah, man. Just enjoy the Thursday night football. Enjoy the bye week to my Commanders fans, and there should be some good matchups this week. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We appreciate all the love, all the support. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at TimWalkOnWater2, at Awthentik. You guys can keep up to date with all the moving pieces within the Awthentik and the Beard community. But yeah, appreciate all the love, everybody.
Most definitely, man. Y'all enjoy y'all football tonight. I'm glad to see another Thursday here. Week 14, man. This season has definitely been flying by. Definitely check us out on Sunday morning for the parlay. We'll be here at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll also be doing a recap on Bleacher Report of the Saints and New York Giants game at around 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time as well. So make sure you guys keep your eyes peeled for that. Enjoy y'all football, man. Nothing like a Thursday night football to get you ready for some Sunday night football. Best of luck in all your fantasy matchups as well if you got some players playing tonight. And y'all know how we end every podcast over here. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack. And that's a wrap, y'all. Y'all be good. We'll catch y'all on Sunday morning for the parlay. Y'all be easy. Peace.